ahead of today's meeting, where both the sides agreed to handle differences through peaceful discussion and not allow them to become disputes. Unlocking underway across the nation. Kerala issues SOPs for opening of religious places, shopping malls, restaurants and hotels from 9th of June. Maharashtra allows opening of shops except malls and showrooms with odd-even formula. The government offices in Jammu and Kashmir to function with full strength. Air India begins bookings under Phase 3 of Vande Bharat mission for select destinations in US, Canada, United Kingdom and Europe. Over 22,000 seats booked till today morning. More than 1 lakh Indians brought back through 454 flights under the mission. INS Jalashwa starts its third voyage with 700 Indians from Maldives. President promulgates 2 ordinances with the aim of giving boost to rural India and agriculture. Measures and ordinance will enable barrier-free trade in agriculture produce and also empower farmers to engage with sponsors of his choice. Active COVID-19 cases in India rise to 1,15,942 with 1,14,072 recoveries. Global cases continue to spiral up with over 67 lakh cases with fatalities near 4 lakh. Hello, you're watching Midday News and I'm Preeti presenting the Bulletin. In the next half an hour, we'll get an account of everything that's been making it to the headlines. Our top story first. Indian and Chinese military officials are holding Lieutenant General level talks at Ladakh's Chushul-Moldu border meeting point. 14 Corps Commander Lieutenant General Harinder Singh is leading the Indian side to maintain the consensus reached by the leaders of 2 nations to maintain peaceful, stable and balanced relations between India and China. The Lieutenant General level army officers are meeting at Moldo border post in China. Amidst over 2 weeks long standoff in eastern Ladakh between the 2 powerful armies in the world, the ongoing meeting is seen as very important. Both armies are expected to discuss the de-escalation of tensions and resolve the differences in a peaceful manner. Meanwhile, Indian Army in a statement said that Indian and Chinese officials continue to remain engaged through the established military and diplomatic channels to address the current situation in India-China border areas. At this stage, therefore, any speculative and unsubstantiated reporting about these engagements would not be helpful, and media is advised to refrain from such reporting. Earlier, Joint Secretary East Asia Naveen Srivastav and Director General in the Chinese Military of Foreign Affairs Wu Jianghao held a meeting via video conferencing on Friday. The 2 sides reviewed the state of bilateral relations, including the current developments. In this context, they recalled the consensus reached by the leaders of the 2 countries that peaceful, stable and balanced relations between India and China will be a positive factor for stability in the current global situation. Both the sides also agreed that in accordance with the guidance provided by the leadership, the 2 sides should handle their differences through peaceful discussion, bearing in mind the importance of respecting each other's sensitivities, concerns, aspirations, and not allow them to become disputes. Sudhir Yadav is joining us on phone to get us more on that. Sudhir, Indian and Chinese military officials are holding Lieutenant General level talks. Let us know more about the significance of these talks, and also both the sides have maintained that peacefully the issues have to be resolved. Talk more about it.
बिल्कुल प्रीति, देखिए दोनों भारत और चीन ने दोनों इस चीज पर रेटरेट किया है तो दो इशू बीच अगर कोई इश्यूज है उनको पीसफुली रिजॉल्व करना होगा। खास तौर पर अगर हम दोनों आर्मी के बीच पेट्रोलिंग को लेकर अगर डिफरेंसेस हैं या एलएसी के परसेप्शन को लेकर जो डिफरेंसेस है उनकी अगर हम बात करें तो एक मैकेनिज्म ऑलरेडी डेवलप्ड है कि अगर दोनों देशों की सेनाओं के बीच में पेट्रोलिंग के दौरान अगर कोई इशू आता है तो उसको किस तरीके से उसको सुलझाना है, तो ये उसी के तहत ये वार्ता हो रही है, लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल लेवल टॉक्स। और खास बात यह है कि इसमें जो भारत है अपना पूरा पक्ष कि किस तरीके से जो दोनों देशों के परसेप्शन है, सीमा पर किस तरीके से पेट्रोलिंग होती रही है, उन सब चीजों को सामने रखेगा अभी तक प्रीति।
All right, Sudhir, also we've told our viewers how there has been importance has been given on the fact that both sides have to find a solution amicably, and that the discussions and the situation should not turn into dispute. And also we've told our viewers how the two sides reviewed the state of the bilateral relations yesterday also diplomatically, and also the relationship between India and China will be a positive factor for stability in the current global situation. Talk more about this, Sudhir.
बिल्कुल, देखिए कल ही जो जॉइंट उनके बीच उनके जो काउंटर पार्टी चाइना में उनके साथ बातचीत तो ये भी हुआ कि दोनों देशों के बीच जो संबंध है उनको आखिर किस तरीके से और बेहतरी की ओर ले जाया जाए। जो अगर कोई इश्यूज बनते हैं तो उसको आखिर जो बायलैटरल रिलेशंस हैं उनका रिव्यू किस तरीके से किया जाए, तो वो बातचीत हुई, वो काफी अच्छी माहौल में बातचीत हुई। और आज की अगर हम बात करें लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल लेवल टॉक की, तो ये भी बात हो रही है। और इसमें खासतौर पर प्रीति एक चीज हम लोगों को समझनी होगी, व्यूअर्स को एक चीज समझनी होगी कि जो भारत और चीन की जो सीमा है, वो जो ट्रेन है वहां पर कई बार जो दोनों सेनाओं की जो बाउंड्री का परसेप्शन है उसकी वजह से कई बार पेट्रोलिंग के दौरान जो दोनों पेट्रोलिंग टीम्स है भारत और चीन की, वो कई बार एक दूसरे के सामने आ जाती है, जिससे कई बार कुछ स्थिति पैदा होती है जिससे उसमें कुछ विवाद होता है। तो इसी के मद्देनजर कई बार ऐसा पहली बार नहीं है, ये नया नहीं है कि ये पहली बार हुआ है, इससे पहले भी कई बार ऐसी स्थितियां सामने आई हैं जिनको लोकल लेवल पर एक सेट मैकेनिज्म है जिसके जरिए इनको सुलझाना है। उसी तरीके से पहले भी बातचीत हुई और अब भी जो अभी हाल में जिस तरीके से पेट्रोलिंग को लेकर एक दूसरे के बीच में जो टर्न आउट जो चीजें सामने आई हैं उसको लेकर आखिर किस तरीके से दोनों देश एक दूसरे के सामने आए, इसी मस्ती को लेकर जो लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल लेवल टॉक्स है वो हो रही है। इसमें भारत जो है भारत अपनी तरफ से जो चीजें हैं वो सामने रखेगा कि आखिर किस तरीके से भारतीय जो परसेप्शन है वो है, और हमें जो अप्रैल से पहले की जो स्टेटस को की स्थिति है दोनों सेनाओं की तरफ से उसको बाहर रखा जाए। प्रीति।
All right, thank you so much, Sudhir, for joining us with those inputs. From here we go across to our correspondent Ramesh Chandra, who's joining us from Leh. Ramesh, we've told our viewers that the talks are still in progress. Let us know the latest on that. And also, when we talk of the importance and the significance of the talks, tell us more about it.
Yeah, talks in fact scheduled at 11 o'clock today, and as per the protocols and ceremonial receptions by the Chinese army to Indian delegation led by Harinder Singh, Lieutenant General Harinder Singh, GOC of Fire and Fury. It began slightly late, and now the talks are on progress, and Indian delegation has completely presenting their case why the meetings are in progress now, and what are their point of view, and what is the other side of view they wanted to listen it across the board, and settle the issues amicably. And as you know, this region, as Sudhir also was saying, it is imaginary boundary, and there are several times there was a face-off by ITBP and PLA, but these are all resolved at the.
All right, I think we've not been able to maintain that connection with our correspondent there. We'll try getting back to him again, but at present, strategic expert Harshvi Pant is joining us to talk more about it. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on DD News. When we talk of these talks, yesterday, diplomatically, the talks were held, and it was decided that the talks and the situation will be handled peacefully, and it will not be allowed to turn into a dispute. How important are today's talks? Let's talk first about that. Tell us more about the significance of the talks.
Well, these are very important talks because they are about the operational aspects of the differences that have continued to bedevil our relationship with China. And they are trying to resolve some of the disputes that have emerged in recent days. So clearly, there would be a lot of pressure on the negotiators. But I think what is important is the fact that the diplomatic communique that we heard yesterday talked of the intention on both sides to resolve this matter peacefully and amicably. And I think that is what has been a consistent pattern when you look at Sino-Indian relations, Sino-Indian border disputes, that despite the fact that this is one of the longest borders, disputed borders in the world, shots have never been fired on this since 60s. So clearly we are looking at at a relationship that continues to move in a positive direction despite all the problems. And these kinds of transgressions, these kinds of problems that emanate at the border occasionally continue to happen on both sides and continue to shape the engagement on both sides. But both sides have been mature enough not to let these local level problems become strategic problems. And I think that would be the intention during these talks, to have these negotiations and to resolve the dispute at the local level, at the level of senior military officers. And there is enough flexibility in the system to allow that to happen. And that is good news. And one hopes that translates into productive engagement today and resulting in equally productive results today.
All right, this positivity, this optimism also stems from the fact that a balanced relationship between India and China will be a positive factor for stability when we talk of the current global situation.
Absolutely, and I think that has been always, especially if you look at what Prime Minister Modi talked of post Doklam, and his effort has been to create an environment between India and China that allows for the positive in this relationship to become stronger, to make sure that China and India, as the two largest economies in the world today, shoulder greater burden, come together to solve global problems. And I think that has been the intention all along. So when you talk of Wuhan spirit, when you look at the China Connect last year, when Chinese president visited India, that had been the focus. And clearly today, when the world is passing through a tumultuous period, when you have problems both on the economic front and on the health front, it is imperative for India and China to work together. We know that the border is porous. We know that the border has problems. And these problems are not of today's making. They go back all the way to the 60s. So you clearly have a problem which is decades old. It will not be resolved in a day or two. What can be done is to focus on the positive. What can be done is to make sure that these problems do not become strategic problems. And at the strategic level, therefore, coordination and compatibility increases. And that's what I think the intention has been ever since Mr. Modi took office and ever since the sort of Wuhan spirit took hold of the relationship. With all the problems, I think we have seen top-level leadership engagement. We have seen, as you were pointing out earlier, that the diplomatic communique, even in these difficult circumstances, has ensured that we are going to focus on amicably resolving this problem. And that speaks volumes about the strategic compatibility that exists between the two sides, in recognizing that we have to work together, not only to resolve this particular problem, but also to make sure that India and China in today's world do the kind of role that is expected of them.
All right, the Indian Army also in a statement yesterday talked of how cautious the media has to be while reporting the facts, and how the facts have in fact to be reported, and media is advised to refrain from speculative reporting. Your take on that?
Absolutely, I think very essential. Unfortunately, what we have seen, in the last few weeks is a lot of speculation happening, a lot of irrelevant facts being brought to the fore, lots of imagery that is being distributed, circulated, which is not necessary. We have seen a lot of speculation, particularly about where the LAC is, what sort of role the two sides have played, where the two sides are positioned, what sort of strategies the two sides are opting for. And that's completely unnecessary, because I don't think anyone in the media has even a slightest idea as to what exactly the positions of the armed forces are on both sides of the LAC, and what exactly the strategies that are being adopted are. So clearly, speculating in this environment leads to a fall in the larger ecosystem that is needed to generate positive momentum in these ties. And if you vitiate the atmosphere by constantly misreporting, by constantly reporting the negatives of this relationship, I think you are doing great injustice to a relationship that, despite its problems, had stood the test of the times.
All right, from here we go across to our correspondent from Leh, Ramesh Chandra is joining us. And Ramesh, a while back when we were talking about the scope of these talks and how important these are. Please continue, given that there are expectations that both the sides will resolve the issues amicably.
Yesterday, following the External Affairs Ministry discussion over video conference with the other side, now this meeting between Army Corps commanders is important. It is the bonhomie that they have to maintain, and the cordial relations they have been maintaining over years, rather decades. That has to be maintained, and at this meeting, today's meeting at Moldo, this will prevail. Both the parties will present their case, and issue will be sorted out amicably. And Chinese delegation is led by Lin Liu, who is Corps Commander South Xinjiang Division, Military Division of People Liberation Army. And the Indian side is led by GOC 14 Corps, Harinder Singh.
All right, Ramesh, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs from Leh. We'll come back to you again during the day to get more. Going back to our expert, Mr. Harsh, when we're talking of the relationship between the two countries, it would be, it would be in the good sense that the relationship is not just evaluated based on these, on the meetings today, and also there is a wide, there are in fact wide areas wherein the relationship can expand to. There are a lot of positives. There are a lot of optimistic areas also between the two countries, which are equally important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Border issue has been one part of a relationship that is multifaceted, that has many angles to it, that has in fact been growing over the last few decades. So clearly, to say that this is the only aspect of this relationship that we need to focus on is wrong and is factually incorrect. This is one problem that again goes back to 50s and 60s, that dates back to the way these the two countries emerge as post-colonial entities. And I think that the resolution of this problem is one aspect of a wider relationship that is now in fact one of the most important bilateral relationships for India and for China. India and China are two emerging economies that have a larger role to play in global economy. India and China are two countries in the Asian landscape, which is being shaped by the emergence of major powers like India and China, and I think that continues to be a strategic challenge for both India and China. Therefore, increasing coordination, increasing dialogue is very, very important. We have also seen cultural aspects emerging as very important. For example, yoga is very popular in China. We have had students from India going to China. So clearly the relationship is multifaceted. It can't be just based on our assessment of what is happening today on the borders.
All right. Thank you so much. On that note, we'll take your leave. Thank you so much for joining us on DD News, Mr. Harsh. So we had inputs coming in from our guest. We had inputs coming in from our reporter, who gave us the updates on the India-China military level talks. We'll keep you updated. The talks are still. Let's turn focus to other news now. Air India has to destinations in the US and Canada, including New York, Newark, Chicago, Washington, San Francisco, Vancouver and Toronto under the third phase of Vande Bharat mission. Over 22,000 seats have been sold overall till 8 this morning. Bookings continue and tickets are being issued. Third phase will begin from 9th of this month till 30th June. Air India has tweeted that more seats to more destinations will be added in due course. Meanwhile, an Air India flight carrying stranded Indian nationals will leave Kuwait. The flight will arrive at Bhubaneswar via Delhi. The check-in formalities are being done for the passengers. Over 1 lakh Indians have been brought back under Vande Bharat mission so far. Under the second phase of Operation Samudra Setu, Indian naval ship INS Jalashwa departed from Malé port on Friday evening with approximately 700 Indians. Immigration and medical checks were carried out before embarkation, and safety guidelines were being strictly adhered to, and handling personnel have been provided with full safety gear. The ship is expected to reach Tuticorin by Sunday morning. The evacuated personnel will be disembarked at Tuticorin in Tamil Nadu and entrusted to the care of state authorities. Now, with this trip, INS Jalashwa will successfully bring back almost 2,700 Indian citizens from Maldives and Sri Lanka back to the Indian shores. And in Kerala, places of worship, shrines, shopping malls, hotels, hospitality units, restaurants and offices will be open to the public from 9th of June. These places can open on June 8th for cleaning and disinfecting, and arrangements are being made to receive the public from the next day onwards. Kerala government has decided to follow the standard operating procedures issued by the central government in opening up these places. Apart from general guidelines, the state government has come out with few additional instructions to be followed at all these public places. In Maharashtra, after nearly 70 days of lockdown, all markets, market areas and shops, sans malls, are reopening across the state after the state government eased restrictions. On one day, all shops on one side of the road will stay open, while all shops on the other side of the road will remain open the next day. The activities related to self-employed people like plumbers, electricians, pest control and technicians are also allowed. In revised guidelines, the state government said that the inter-district movement of people in MMR shall also be allowed. However, no garden, open-air gym and play area equipments will be allowed to operate. And with the prevailing Unlock 1 opening up majority of commercial activities, it becomes more essential to practice the precautionary measures. As markets and street vendors are also opening up after a long halt, the government has issued a set of guidelines for them in order to curb the spread of COVID-19. The government has ordered for regular sanitization of commonly used surfaces like counters, doorknobs and premises. Mall management have to ensure all common areas, including elevators, toilets, are sanitized regularly. Also, mall management will have to ensure provision of thermal screening at the entry points. Also, they have to maintain appropriate indoor cooling. The government has also ordered to ensure proper arrangement for disposal of face masks and gloves, along with displaying important helpline numbers, including 1075 at prominent spaces. Vendors must also ensure adequate social distancing and must not entertain buyers without a mask. President Ramnath Kovind has promulgated the two ordinances with the aim of giving boost to rural economy and to help farmers. Now, these two ordinances are the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance 2020 and the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Ordinance 2020. Both the ordinances have been approved by the Cabinet recently. These two ordinances will enable barrier-free trade in agriculture produce and also empower the farmers to engage with sponsors of their choice. And up next, we'll take a look at the overall COVID-19 situation in the country. So far, a total of 1,14,072 patients have been cured of COVID-19. The recovery rate has improved amongst the patients. Presently, there are 1,15,942 active cases and all are under active medical supervision. In international news, taking a stand against the death of George Floyd, protesters took to the streets of America's cities. People gathered near White House in California, New York and Washington. All protesters rallied in peaceful demonstrations. The gatherings were echoed by the voice to renew the civil rights movement, seeking reforms to America's criminal justice system. California governor also announced that he would end state police training in the use of carotid restraints, similar to the technique used on George Floyd, showing solidarity. Several members of the Jaguars NFL team took to the streets of Jacksonville to march in protest. The death of African-American George Floyd has also triggered worldwide protest against racism and brutality. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau joined thousands at an anti-racism rally and took a knee alongside protesters. Trudeau, wearing a black mask and surrounded by bodyguards, made a surprise appearance at the No Justice, No Peace rally in front of Parliament. Demonstrations were also held in other Canadian cities, including Toronto, where hundreds walked downtown, showing solidarity to the move of Black Lives Matter. Masked men and women protested at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City. Crowds also gathered across Australia to support the Black Lives Matter movement and also raise awareness of the mistreatment of Indigenous Australians. Thousands of Germans also protested against racism, holding banners with slogans such as "Your pain is my pain, your fight is my fight." And that's it in this edition of Midday News this afternoon. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.